So I've been a delivery driver for about 3 years ever since the start of the pandemic. It's a lot more stressful than people think, and I've dealt with several different customers, but this one takes the prize. It was a Thursday, and I had been doing Uber Eats orders for people who just preferred to stay home. Most of the time, I do orders until really late in order to keep the cash flowing. Since this was around the time where these delivery apps really started to take off, I took advantage of it and worked both Uber Eats and DoorDash. On this particular day, I had been using Uber Eats. Not before long, I had received one order from a house that wasn't too far away, and the order was pretty big, which basically meant an extra tip. I drive to the given restaurant, obtain the order, and drive the 10-minute drive to the given address. On this day, it happened to be raining, and one thing I've always hated was driving in the rain. But I had to make my money somehow. It's about 4 in the afternoon, and as I'm driving, I turn into the road where the house was. Now, in order to get to this house, you'd have to go down this narrow pathway that cuts straight into a wooded area. To say the least, it was pretty much a well-hidden path unless you accidentally stumbled upon it or knew where you were going. I pull onto this dirt road, driving as slowly as I can, and pull up to a small one-storied house. At the front of this house was a man sitting in his rocking chair, listening to the rain. I get out of my car and he gets up to come help me with the food. At first, he genuinely seemed like a pleasant guy. He looked like your typical redneck, but he was respectful and apologized for the confusion of his location. I had said that it wasn't a problem and to have a nice day. Before I was about to get back in my car, he then asks if I wanted to come inside to try some pastries he had made earlier. I politely decline and tell him I had to get back to doing orders. However, he didn't even seem to acknowledge my response and simply insisted that I go inside with him. Once again, I declined, telling him I was sorry and that I'm sure they were good. No matter how many times I said no, he'd always make attempts for me to agree, even going as far as raising my tip. This time, I was visibly annoyed, but still kept my composure while giving him a firm no. I then take out my phone, pretending I was on a phone call with another customer. This thankfully made him stop asking me, causing him to go inside with his food. When he did, I hop back into my car, start my engine, and sped off. As I'm driving back down this narrow road, I then see him speed walking after my car from my rear view mirror. Now, if the story had ended there, it wouldn't be scary. But this story comes with a very unsettling twist. That night when I had gotten home, my girlfriend and I had sat down on the couch watching the news. At one point, there was a chilling news report about a man in the area attempting to lure kids into his truck. As much as I hate to say it, we lived in an area that wasn't so great, so stuff like this did happen occasionally. But when this news report showed the person responsible, I almost spit out the water I was drinking. On my TV was the same man I had taken the delivery order from, causing me to go absolutely hysterical. He had the same face, same beard, and the same hair. I just knew it was him. Turns out, he was arrested shortly after I had delivered his food. After all, I knew there was something off about that man. And boy, did I end up being correct. This happened when I was 19 years old when I was a sophomore in college. My parents had just started making me pay for my things as they felt I was getting too old for them to be paying. This included things such as food, bills, items, and other things like that. While they still took care of the house bills, it was really expensive to pay for all of my stuff. I had a small part-time job at my college, but them paying $10 an hour wasn't enough to keep me satisfied. In other words, I needed to find another job. I lived in a small town in Ohio, so there weren't many openings available. Thankfully, my friend who was an athlete at the time had told me about this new app called DoorDash. He explained that he did well from it and that it was very easy money. With no job and nothing to do, I decided to do delivery until I could find a stable job. For the first few weeks, I got absolutely nothing. I assumed it had been because I was new to DoorDash, and that was why. As time progressed, however, I got assigned to take more orders, which really increased pay. One night, I was home alone, bored out of my mind with nothing to do. Being productive, I decided to do a few orders and possibly make a few bucks for the night. It was around 9 p.m. and I had only gotten done about 5 orders before I was ready to call it a night. However, that was when another delivery option became available and decided to take it. The drive wasn't too far and the person had ordered a lot of food, which meant the possibility of a bigger tip. Long story short, I get the food and drive to the house when I get a phone call from the person who placed the order. He had told me in what seemed like an anxious tone that he had made the mistake by marking the option to leave the order at the door and that he'd preferred it to be handed. He also mentioned that he was alone and just wanted to talk as he needed, quote, human communication. Okay, so this kind of set up a little bit of a red flag as I wasn't sure why it even mattered. Being dumb and not thinking too much into it, I tell him that it was no problem and within minutes I pull up to the driveway. Now, his driveway is a very long stretch of gravel road through a few trees, which made it even more sketchy. The very second I pull in, I see him in front of his garage waving a fire axe around. I felt a chill run down my spine as I saw this and rolled down my window, telling him that if he wanted his food that he'd have to come get it himself. He replies with something along the lines of, No, that's okay. You don't have to be more scared than you already are. I tell him that I'm not getting out of the car and that if he wanted it to come get it. He does not like it when I say that and starts charging at my car with the axe in hand. I immediately hit the gas and drive out of there as fast as I could. Thankfully, he didn't manage to catch up to me or hurt me in any way. I canceled the DoorDash order and called the police explaining everything. I wasn't sure if they took action or not, but either way, I reported the incident to DoorDash and quit right then. Anyway, that's my story, and I hope you can learn from it and to always trust your gut. So, this happened the day before Halloween, and I'm still on the edge of my seat as I write this. For reference, I'm a female, currently 24, and live in a small town outside of Omaha, Nebraska. The town I lived in is known to be very safe with a population of about 5,000 people, meaning bad things don't happen here. It's a nice little community, and it even had its own park and signature restaurants and shops. I've lived in this town my whole life and never once had a reason to feel afraid. However, that would all change in just one night. It was the middle of the night, and I had just come home from a friend's party really tired. Wanting to go to bed, but also really hungry, I decided I'd figure out what I could eat. Now, one thing you have to know about me is that I could never sleep on an empty stomach. With little to no motivation to cook anything, I decided to order a few things from McDonald's via DoorDash. I hardly used it, but it was convenient for times like these when I didn't want to cook anything. Living in the middle of nowhere, I knew it would take a while for a Dasher to deliver my food. To kill some time, I started on some homework and watched a few YouTube videos while waiting for my food. About 30 minutes go by and I get a notification from DoorDash letting me know that the Dasher was approaching. Relieved, I go outside where I was greeted to a man in his car that had my food. He politely gives it to me and even makes sure it was the correct order and tells me to have a nice night. I thank him for the order and leave him an extra tip as a token of my respect. He then drives off and I go inside to finish my homework while I ate my dinner until it was time for bed. After about an hour or so of rolling around in my bed trying to get comfortable, I finally managed to fall asleep. Suddenly, the sound of heavy knocking at the front door abruptly woke me up. Thinking it was maybe my parents or possibly my older brother coming home, I put on my slippers and go out to the front to look. Standing on the other side of the door was the DoorDash delivery man staring at my Ring doorbell camera with this creepy smile. He was saying all these sorts of weird phrases while pacing back and forth around my patio. I ask him if he needed help and he responds in this raspy voice saying that he wanted to thank me for the tip and wanted to come in to chat. I tell him that it was my pleasure but that I couldn't let him in as I was sleeping. However, he disregarded my answer and started persuading me as to why I should let him in. At this point, he's clearly not taking no for an answer, and I told him to please leave my property before I called 911. His joyful, cheerful face then suddenly changed drastically into anger. Then, as if things couldn't get any worse, he starts to form this really creepy grin and begins to laugh out loud hysterically. On top of that, he also made various death threats towards me while basically pounding on my door. Now, I can't show you the whole video, but here's a picture of what he looked like taken from my Ring doorbell camera. That's what I saw, clear as day, standing right outside of my driveway. I tell him that I'm calling the police, and this is what made him finally back off and drive away. Needless to say, I reported the incident to DoorDash and called the sheriff just to be safe. From what I heard, DoorDash had removed him from doing deliveries and police were able to make an arrest. I'm still not sure if I'd be writing this had I opened the door. So, I've been a Dasher for DoorDash ever since it came out in 2013. I've basically made a living off it, doing deliveries almost every day and making bank by doing it. While there have been some pretty shady encounters throughout my years of DoorDash, this story takes the cake. My girlfriend and I had just attended a concert and we were on our way back to her house to go drop her off. I drop her off and kiss her goodnight, and with enough time to spare, I decide I'd go do some orders to make some extra cash. Doing deliveries for a while might seem like a hassle, but it's really easy once it starts to grow on you. Within a few minutes, I received an order to go pick up from KFC. However, the problem was that whoever placed the order barely met the delivery radius. I sighed, but said screw it and did the order. Long story short, I pick up the food, put it in the car, and drove the 30-minute drive to the address. My GPS led to the more rural side of town. I hated this part of my city as it's a very sketchy area with the type of people you didn't want to meet. You get the type of place I mean. Long story short, I pull up to the house my GPS took me to, and it's this old rundown looking house that basically looked abandoned. The lights were off, and there wasn't even a car in the driveway. While all of this seemed like one big red flag, I couldn't bail on the order, so I very hesitantly approached the door with the food. I'm about halfway to the door when it surprisingly opens and a woman steps out. She wore what seemed like a nightgown and looked as if she had just gotten out of a shower. I continue walking and attempt to hand her the food when one of her iced teas falls out and spills all over the driveway. The look of sheer anger on her face said it all, and I apologized, telling her I'd pay for it and that I could go back to get her another one. However, this didn't seem to faze her as she began to yell in my face, telling me how I couldn't do my job right, that DoorDash hired lazy people, etc. I simply told her that it was an accident and that I'd be more than happy to replace it. All of a sudden, she went back inside and came out 10 seconds later carrying a pistol. She aims it at me, and I drop the order, get in my car, and just go. Thankfully, I didn't hear any gunfire, which either indicated that she only did it to scare me or that it was a fake gun. I still sometimes DoorDash every now and then, but still got a part-time job to support myself. This just goes to show you that everything you basically do in life is dangerous. When I was 17, I worked at a pizza chain as a part-time job in Iowa City, Iowa. Being a teen with not much in my life, I had mostly worked the night shifts alongside my other coworker. It would stay busy well into the day and would start to die down come evenings. This was around the time where people were simply too tired to come and get food and preferred to just order it. I won't disclose any of my colleagues' information, so I'll just call my coworker Jared. Jared was a bit older than me, who was mainly placed in charge of making the pizzas while I was the one delivering them. On this night, it had just been me and him. It was already past 10 and we were getting ready to close when the phone rang. I answered it, and right away I hear someone on the other end, an older lady requesting a large pepperoni. I was annoyed as we were about to close and I really did not feel like driving. She had given me the address, which thankfully wasn't too far, and because it was a single pie, I'd be in and out. Thankfully, Jared had made a pepperoni pizza and couldn't deliver it due to a cancellation, so he just told me to take that one instead. I hop into my car and drive a few miles down near the interstate. Now, this interstate wasn't very popular, and it was also somewhat unsettling. This was mainly due to the fact that it had been surrounded by forest on the opposite sides of it. Driving through these roads at night with nobody around is enough to creep anyone out. After all, I did live in the rural part of my city, which only added to the creepiness. Anyway, I'm driving down the road when I see something up ahead on the side of the grass. As I drive closer, I realize it's a man waving his arms up in the air, attempting to flag me down. Now, I would have just drove by him, but earlier that week, I had heard the phrase, "Character is what you do when no one is looking." And for whatever reason, that was the night I decided that I was a man of character. Huge mistake. I pull over slowly and roll down my window just a tad before asking him if he needed help. Right away, he starts rambling on about how he was taking his dog for a walk when it ran off into the woods. He then offers me $300 if I could help him find his dog, as it was near and dear to him. Almost immediately, alarms start going off in my head as he's telling me his story. 1. Who walks their dog in the middle of an interstate? 2. If he did have a dog, why is he walking it at this time of night? And 3. The forest area is barricaded by wired fences, so there's no way the dog would have just jumped over it. I might have been naive, but I wasn't born yesterday. I apologized, telling him I'd be unable to, as I had to deliver this pizza and that it couldn't be late. However, he disregarded what I had said and basically tried pressuring me into helping him. I tell him no once again. Just as he was about to say something, I hear, clear as day, a blood-curdling scream from the woods calling for help. From my point of view, it sounded like a woman's cry for help. It was then when I had looked at this person who now had this menacing glare. He looks around for a brief second, leans in toward my car, and tells me to leave in a more upset tone. Not giving it a second thought, I speed down the road, not looking back. The rest of my delivery went smoothly, but I still couldn't shake the feeling off of what had happened. I reported my encounter to the police, and I was later told that they had searched the area, but had found no sign of anyone. The next day, I had gone back to my job and quit right then and there. No more late-night deliveries for me. Till this day, I'm still not sure what I encountered that night. I'm not sure if it was someone that really did lose their dog or something much worse.
My name is Nate, and I was around 15 years old when this happened. My family and I had lived in a small town right outside of Nashville, Tennessee. I attended school at a private institution and was definitely no popular kid. I had a group of friends, but there were only 2 in the group who I really considered as real friends. They've always had my back, and we would even go to each other's houses on Fridays. One night, my parents were out of state for a work event, and being the rebellious kid I was, I had both my friends over for a movie night. It was me, my good friend Ryan, and my other friend Mike, along with my dog Bruce, who we all knew and adored. Bruce was a big German shepherd who had the personality of a teddy bear and was very friendly. When they arrived, our first move was to help ourselves to my dad's stock of booze he kept in his closet. Yeah, we were crazy kids, and if we were to get caught, it would have been worth it. We spent the next few hours playing video games and watching the hit new season of Stranger Things. As we're about halfway into one of the episodes, the 3 of us hear an unexpected knock at the door. The 3 of us looked confused, as we weren't expecting any more visitors. I got up from the couch to go to the door, expecting it to be my parents, possibly returning home early. Standing there on the porch was a Domino's delivery pizza man carrying a single large pie. He gives us a smile and says, "Hey, large pepperoni, paid for online." We all look at each other as we hadn't ordered any pizza. However, the 3 of us are suckers for pizza and we gladly take it off his hands. Being a bunch of teens, we weren't going to give up on a free pizza. However, Ryan, being the good Samaritan he was, had gotten us to agree that we shouldn't just eat someone else's food. In the end, we decided it was the right thing to do, and so we left the pizza on the kitchen table and called the nearest Domino's. We tell them that there had been a mistake and that we received an unordered pizza. They ask for my address, and when I tell them, they say that they hadn't gotten any orders from that part of town all day. On top of that, they had also pointed out that my location barely met their delivery radius. We confirmed to them several times that it was indeed a Domino's pizza. They told us they would check around and call us back if they had found anything. And if they found nothing, we could just go ahead and eat it. We give them about 10 minutes to call us back and fix ourselves a few snacks in the meantime. We head back into the kitchen and was shocked by what we found. Bruce had stuffed his face into the pizza box and had eaten nearly half of the pizza. As funny as it was, We knew that we had been in hot water if this really was a mistake. Ryan goes to throw the pizza in the trash, and we finish our show while eating our snacks. About 30 minutes later, I started to notice that Bruce had started to become noticeably distressed. He had been whimpering and crying and would frequently begin losing his balance. After a few minutes of checking to see what was wrong with him, it didn't take long to realize that he was extremely ill. Not wanting to wait any longer, we all carry him and find a nearby emergency vet. We thankfully find one and rush him in there as soon as we could. Because this was later in the night, the vet had taken him home almost immediately to get tested on. According to the vet, he was displaying unusual symptoms and behavior. Upon running a few more tests, they had found something that nearly turned our stomachs. There had been several traces of strychnine found in Bruce's system. It's a very dangerous poison, mainly used for killing rodents. If consumed, this can ultimately kill you in about 30 minutes. It turns out that the cheese on the pizza had been laced with it. My parents had to come home right away when they found out, and we had told the police everything. We even tried describing the guy who had given us the pizza, but nothing came of it. Because he had looked like any ordinary pizza delivery person, there was no way to accurately describe what he looked like. There had been no reports in the area of other people receiving a poisoned pizza. The good news was that Bruce did thankfully survive with proper treatment. However, if we would have waited just 10 minutes later, chances are he wouldn't have made it. If you ever get food deliveries to your house that you never ordered, call the company it was from to confirm. It might just save your life.
When I was 18, I started doing DoorDash as a side hustle to support my family and I. Other than putting a crap ton of miles on your car, it was a pretty chill job to say the least. One night, I was doing deliveries as usual when I got an order from a local food chain not too far. To cut to the chase, I get the food and drop it off at the given address, and this was when shit went down. After dropping the food off, I got a phone call from the person who ordered only to hear heavy breathing. After saying hello several times, I was about to hang up when someone on the other end says, "You'll find a surprise when you get home." They then hung up and I drive over to my apartment to find the door cracked open. In fact, the whole apartment room had been ransacked. Tables turned over, furniture broken, and glass shattered everywhere. This incident still leaves me in shock as it still doesn't make sense. Even today, police were never able to figure out if it actually was the person who ordered. It wasn't long until after where I quit DoorDashing.